I'm
an
going
apple, please. Apple?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, give cheesecake. Does this count?
I wish you could see her like sliding the invisible cheesecake into her mouth.
Watch on the video. It's fun. Hello, 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 and welcome to Well Shit. It really is that simple. I'm Claire.
And I'm Serena. On this podcast, we help you to understand about your 12 universal needs, why they are currently not being well met,
How to meet them in ways that work for you, and how to consistently do so in quick, easy, and simple ways that fit seamlessly into your life.
We'll also help you to understand how doing so will have a positive ripple effect in literally every area of your life.
If you like what you hear, please support us on Patreon.
And enjoy the show.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, everyone.
I really wish that people were listening to the conversations that we have before we go live.
If we ever decide to do a blooper reel, like,
oh my goodness,
watch out. Because we, as you know, we've had a couple of episodes where record didn't quite happen until...
that didn't quite happen. Didn't happen at all.
Well, we're recording on Zoom, but when we silence our mics, then you get no voices. So we tend to hit record and then we just do our thing for a minute, have our conversation. Yeah.
I mean, like, just the amount of conversations around, like, ready? Yeah, no, hold on. Yeah, okay, now I'm ready. Ready? Oh, hold on a second. I just got to shift it. And
she's obviously talking about herself and not me.
Not at all. I mean, I love the fact that you now know why I ask if you're ready before recording, because we had a situation where you started the conversation. I'm like, oh, we're recording? Cool. Hi.
My husband does that too. Like, watching TV, like, I'll say something and then he looks at me. And then he pauses and he'll pause like the TV and he'll be like, okay, what? And I say what I need to say and he's like, is that it? And I'm like, yep. And then I let him pick it up and like this second his thumb and I'm like, oh yeah, and this blah, 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 blah. And he's like, I knew it. And then there are times where he's like, he waits and I'm like, why aren't you turning it back on? And he's like, are you done? I was like, I said I was done. Oh, wait, one second.
Just the random conversations that we have, like, oh, what are we going to start off today talking about? It's like, I don't know, underwear. I mean, cats. That's pretty much a given.
You actually don't hear most of the Larry conversations that happen.
It's true. I do, but you don't. Just be grateful for that. I mean, we are going to have a Larry episode, though. That is going to happen.
And he's going to be here.
We need to bring him here for that episode. Although I do feel like carnage will happen in the background.
I got him a cowboy costume. Oh, he's so freaking cute as a cowboy. One of the ones where his front legs are the legs and then it has arms, so he runs around and the arms just kind of swivel. And
he kind of looks like he's shimmying the whole time. Yeah. It's like as he's walking around.
Oh my goodness, I feel like I should redesign the costume so like...
He's like shimmying as he walks. Yeah, these are the conversations that you
right
miss
here.
By not just be glad that we have a good editing process. Is all I'll say. That's all I have to say about it.
Or be sad about it because I think I'm fucking hilarious.
There's gold. I'm not sure what kind of gold. I'm not sure it's comedy gold. It's
fool's gold.
Yeah, nonsense gold. But yeah, it's good.
It's our gold.
It's funny. Yeah, and at some point we need to do a bloopers reel because there's so many.
I think we could just do a sounds reel.
Well, and the interesting thing is that initially when we started, there were a lot of bloopers, and now most of the bloopers just get left in. Like, we don't edit them out anymore. I mean, you saw someone walked into the freaking recording and we kept it in.
All right.
There you go.
And moving on.
So yeah, it's kind of, I wonder if like we had a little like fly on the wall camera where people could watch us before we start recording. It's different. It's different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that we don't have a little. Well, actually, no. These little cameras right here are usually recording all that nonsense too.
Yeah. I'm glad for editing.
Yes.
Editing is our friend.
It very much is.
So anyway, today we're talking about something that comes up all the time.
Needs?
Oh my God, that's genius. We should do a podcast about that.
Sometimes I can't. I just like when I catch myself being ridiculous, and I'm like, I'm like, too ridiculous for myself.
But the good news is we're both ridiculous.
Yes.
So you're not alone in it. It's like you're in good company. We're in my company anyway.
Why do I say this shit?
So the thing that comes up all the time, and this really is like, well, I'm using that absolutely. Is
and a little side note: the amount of times I've said absolutely since
the recording
when I got called out for, I'm not really an absolute type of person. Like it usually isn't something I would say. And now I'm like, absolutely. Am I saying that because I'm like thinking of it? Have I always said it? And I'm like questioning my absolutes and my literal absolutes and my literal absolutes. Literally?
It's a whole thing of like actual absolutes as in the word absolutes and absolutely, and then absolutes that are not absolutely. Yeah.
But are absolutes.
Yeah. Maybe we need to edit this. I'm just saying. So this thing that comes up all the time when we are talking about needs, and I mean, I'm trying to think if I've ever had a client where this topic hasn't come up at some point, because I'd be really surprised if I have. And that is,
I don't think it's not come up in almost any conversation.
Well, I mean, we probably had a couple, but the majority of conversations. Anyway, let's tell you what it is that we're talking about today. Today we're talking about the fact that a lot of people don't feel like they have time to meet their needs. And it's really no wonder, because we are so busy. Mm-hmm. We have so much going on in our lives. Our lives are so like hectic and just like just one thing after another. And especially where we're kind of bombarded by things that are trying to grab our attention all the time, like the screens and the phone and the TV and all the things. And when we're out and about, like we're very busy. And especially with the amount that we're trying to work. I mean, and especially if you have kids on top of that, where you've got people who you're responsible for meeting their needs as well. It's like, well, I'm trying to meet their needs. How can I meet their needs and my needs at the same time? Like this is one of the things that as I said, I cannot think of a single client who hasn't questioned at some point whether they have time to meet their needs. And if you are sitting here wondering this, if you're thinking, I don't have time to do this, I don't have time to meet my needs, I'm here to let you in on a little secret. The little secret is, we might have mentioned it before.
Once or twice.
Everything you do, every second of every day is done to meet your needs. Now, what this means is you are already doing things to meet your needs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365, unless it's a leap year. Just saying. You're constantly doing things to meet your needs. Even when you're sleeping is meeting your needs. So just because you're asleep doesn't mean to say you're not doing things to meet your needs. You're doing things literally every second of every day to meet your needs. Now, what this means is you don't have to find time to do more. It's not possible to find time to do more because you're already doing things 24/7, 365.
Except during a leap year.
Except in a leap year. Someone's listening. Paying attention. I like it. All you need to do is you need to find the ways of meeting your needs that are more nourishing, that are more supportive, the things that are going to meet your needs better than the things that you're doing. Because that's the thing, is that people are like, well, if I'm doing things to meet my needs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, why are my needs not met? Because the reality is the ways that we are conditioned to meet our needs in this culture are not the most effective ways of meeting our needs.
And they're often uprooting other needs in the process of,
or even the same need.
Yeah, Oftentimes it's the same need and other needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we're conditioned into meeting needs in ways. So this is when we talk about the red-green spectrum, where at one end of the spectrum, the ways. So basically, the universal needs tree exists in the center of this spectrum. So your needs sit in the middle. And the way that you meet the needs sits somewhere on this spectrum. At one end of the spectrum, you've got the less nourishing, less supportive, less constructive way of meeting needs. And at the other end of the spectrum, you've got the more supportive, more nourishing, more fulfilling, more empowering way of meeting needs. So the challenge that we have is that you can be doing, at one end of the spectrum, the red end of the spectrum, you can be doing a lot of stuff to meet your needs and really not feel any or very little fulfillment. Because
an example that you use is the TV dinner way of meeting your needs.
Exactly. So it's like, well, you might not be hungry for another hour or so, but in reality, you're probably going to be hungry very soon after that, because it might have stopped the hunger, but it hasn't actually met the need that's underneath the hunger. At the other end of the spectrum, you've got the whole food, home cooked, nutritionally balanced way of meeting needs, which is the green spectrum. And at that end of the spectrum, you can have much less, but actually the need is met much more. And the great example that actually I think is a great representation of this is the time when I for a period of time, I was doing a detox where I ended up eating raw vegan for a while. And it's not for a lot of people, but it was something that I was doing as part of this detox. And the thing that I found remarkable was that by having raw vegan, and raw vegan doesn't mean to say you're just eating salad all the time. It basically means that you're only eating things that are cooked below a certain temperature, so that the nutritional quality of the food, which degenerates basically when you cook it, it gets maintained. So the nutritional value of the food and quality of the food stays at a high level. And the thing that I found remarkable when I was having the raw vegan food was how little food I needed to eat. Now, Serena knows me very well. She knows I have a very, very significant appetite, and I can pack away a decent sized portion at most meals if I wanted to. Don't always choose to, but I can eat a decent sized meal. And what I was finding was when I was having, like I was making these pizza pockets, and they were about yay big if you're on the video. And I was having to only eat half of one of those because there was so much nutritional content in there that as soon as I'd had half of this thing, along with a little bit of side salad, my brain was getting the message from my stomach, okay, we're done. We've got all we need now. This is like maxed out. We're good. Thanks. Stop eating. We'll let you know when we're hungry again. And that was the signals that I was getting. And I'm like, how am I full? Like I'm eating this tiny, tiny portion, but it was so nutritionally dense that I was getting all of my needs met. Well, while I was doing this, this detox and this way of eating, unfortunately a very dear friend of mine passed in the UK. I was in Chicago when this happened, and he passed. He had cancer. We knew that there was a good possibility that he wasn't going to make it until I got back to the UK, but I heard that he was no longer with us, and I wanted to do something to kind of honor his memory. And he used to go on vacations frequently with my mum and dad, and they had this thing about that they would often go to France, and when they were in France they would go to these patisseries, and they would go to a patisserie every day. They'd have a different pastry every day. And what,
just how fancy patisserie sounded. I was like all I could think of was like a rotisserie. I'm like,
no, it's like a bakery.
Yeah, no, yeah. I guess, yeah.
You with us now?
I'm with you. I was like, okay, and you're like, oh, pay like a...
And like, if you go to France, they have these patisseries, and they're full of these beautiful different desserts.
I can only now I'm back to wanting pie again.
Yeah, that was another episode. It's okay. It's all right. We'll get pie at some point. It's fine. So anyway, so they would go and eat these patisseries, and they'd have one every day, and they would rank the patisseries out of 10.
That's so your parents.
It's,
and,
yeah,
like
it's my dad.
like-
My dad and Martin were the two that used to do this, and they would go out, they'd get a patisserie, and they would rank their patisserie out of 10, and they would do this the whole time they were on vacation. But nothing would ever get a 10 because they always lived in hope of the fact that there would be a better patisserie at some point. So the maximum you would get was like a 9 or a 9.5. So because I wanted to honor his memory, I went to go and get a patisserie. And because I was doing this, I decided I was going to break the raw vegan thing for a day or two. And had a patisserie. It was very nice, just saying. Nice little fruit tart from Whole Foods, I believe it was. Anyway.
But not a 10.
Sorry, it wasn't a 10. Can't ever give it a 10. Just doesn't happen. Which I kind of like. I like the idea that you're anticipating that things will always get better. I love that about it. So anyway, while I did my little break from my raw vegan thing, the Chicago Food Festival was on. Now, I was and always have been and always will be at my heart, a foodie. I love food. I enjoy lots of different types of food. I enjoy playing and trying different things. And I was like, okay, let's go to the Chicago Food Festival. So off we go to the Chicago Food Festival. Now, while I've been eating raw vegan as part of this detox, I was not yet vegan. So I was pescatarian at this point in my life. So I would have seafood and fish, or somebody once called it vegetarian, which I thought was brilliant. Vegetarian.
I like that.
Yeah, me too. As I heard that, I was like, oh, I like that. So you would have like vegetables, and you would have I was still ate dairy at the time, and eggs and those sorts of things. So I went along to the Chicago Food Festival. Now, bear in mind that I had been on this detox for a period of time, and I've been eating this raw vegan for a period of time. And I was used to having these really small meals and feeling stuffed, like feeling so full, but like good full, like as in like I know I feel full, but I feel full of yummy, good, nutritious food. I went to the Chicago Food Festival, and I was kind of horrified actually as the day went by, because I literally did not stop eating the entire day that I was there. And here's the thing, I couldn't get full. And the reason I couldn't get full was because the food I was eating did not have the same nutritional quality of the raw vegan food. So whereas over here, I only need to have this tiny little amount of it, and I was full because not only was I not hungry anymore, but it was meeting the need for nourishment. Hunger is our body's way of triggering, hello, we need nutrition, we need some nourishment. We need to not have hairs in our seltzer.
And my hair across.
Oh,
my
your
face.
hair. I thought
it wasn't in the seltzer, but it caught my mouth, and I tried to be stealth about it. Obviously, I wasn't.
Not so much. So I'd gone from having this raw vegan instead, which again, the hunger is the indicator that we need nourishment, we need nutrition. And so it's saying, give us nutrition. So if you give it a lot of nutrition in a small package, it goes, thanks, awesome, I'm done. What I did on the other side at the food festival was I ate and ate and ate and ate and ate and ate. So I'm eating lots of stuff. Quantity wise, I'm eating a huge amount of stuff. But nutritional wise, it was probably next to zero. I mean, they had, I don't know whether they broke a world record for the biggest cheesecake or something. I mean, obscene. Like, as in like, it was probably about the size of this room. Like, if you take where what archway is, I would imagine the cheesecake was probably about the size of this room.
That's my kind of cheesecake.
It was fucking ridiculous. Absolutely absurd.
Did they have deep fried butter too?
I don't think they did. Is that a thing?
Oh, welcome to America.
We do deep fried Mars bars in some parts of England.
That's
like candy bars.
We'll deep fry anything here. Like honestly, it's like a cultural thing. But the deep fried butter wasn't something I had come across until I traveled a little bit. Like it wasn't a New England thing.
Does it taste good at least?
I've never brought in myself to actually.
Oh, you haven't tried?
I haven't tried.
Queen of experiences over here, or Duchess of experience over here, like hasn't.
Yes. The concept, I've seen it made so many times, and it's just one of those things. Like wherever I was in my head, in my weight struggles, I was never in that space to be like, yes, I know this is a stick of butter, let me just eat it. Mm-hmm. But because they fry everything around it, like basically the butter melts into the fried bread. Breading. Oh, okay. So it's just like a really indulgent, unnecessary.
It's like a deep fried croissant.
Yeah. Filled with butter.
More butter. Well, I mean, if you've ever seen croissants being made, you know
yeah.
that they're like butter on top of butter on top of
Yeah.
butter. Speaking about French patisseries. No, they didn't have deep fried butter.
But that kind of nutritional
yes.
value is what she's talking. It's just that kind of emptiness.
Empty, like you're eating stuff, but it's empty in terms of nutritional value. And I remember having nachos, and I said, like, I just kept eating all day. And every time I ate, I'm like, I'm still hungry. And the reason I was still hungry was because my body was still sending signals going, we need nutrition.
Can I have an apple, please? Apple?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, get cheesecake. Does this count?
I wish you could see her like sliding the invisible cheesecake into her mouth.
Watch on the video. It's fun. It's that whole thing about like, oh, let me like more cheesecake, or let me have nachos, let me have like whatever it was, like fish tacos or whatever.
Oh, you're still hungry? Let me put some cheese sauce on this.
Right.
That's good.
Exactly. And so my body's still going, nutrition, please. So the thing is, like, I was doing stuff to meet the needs, but the strategy I was using, the way I was trying to meet the needs, wasn't actually satisfying the needs at all. I was doing stuff to stop the hunger. Like, I'm getting the signal. Body saying, need nutrition. Signal, I'm hungry. I need to eat something. Apparently, cheesecake isn't part of it. But that's the thing, is that, so this is why we're talking about, like, when it feels like we don't have time to meet our needs, what we need to do is, I'm not suggesting you need to go raw vegan, don't panic, is that what we want to do is we want to take that approach to our other needs. So in the same way as, like, when we're focused on having things that are going to provide our body the nutrition it requires, we need less of it. In the same way as if we meet the needs in the ways that are actually going to resonate with us at the green end of the spectrum, the ways where we can do a very small amount of something and create a huge level of fulfillment, it makes such a difference, because what you can do in that same period of time and the effect it can have in terms of meeting your needs is quite profound. I mean, I know when you first started going through this program, and I started to talk about the red and green spectrum and the ways of meeting needs, I think there was a little bit of a coy smile of like, okay, Claire, all right, okay.
TV dinners and Whole
how
Foods
much of a difference is this really going to make?
There aren't words. there really aren't words. The difference, like, I mean, just as you were giving that example, I was thinking of all the other needs that potentially were being impacted, knowing that situation where you were and all these things, from the base nutrition and the food that you were putting into your body at that point would have slowed down everything in you. And then your value need might have come up at one point as you're spending more money to try and meet the need, but then you're uprooting that one. And and
there's an element also, like, some of the relationship to food of like, this is me treating myself because I'm eating this kind of food, rather than treating myself being like, hey, I'm going to eat something that's going to make my body feel good.
That was I had, like, this kind of jumping topics quite just a little bit, but that was one of the things for me. It was like, something that was indulgent was the treat. And now I'm like, I look at things and it's like, yeah, that sounds good. That's going to be good though. Like, it's, the indulgence is it's the occasional thing. It's not the, I'm worthy enough of eating good quality food that's good for me. Consistently. And a lot of,
Go ahead. I was just about to say, I just want to point out here again, we have an inherent privilege in the fact that we can afford to do that, and we're in a place in the world where we're able to do that. And go ahead. I just wanted to note that.
Yes. Very important to note. And thank you for...
You're welcome.
Hand upping during it.
And squirreling you in the middle of it.
Yeah, no, but I'd rather be squirreled and have that said than...
You were saying about like the putting, like, you're worthy of having consistently putting good nutritious food in your body.
Right. And because it got to a point, I mean, I've seen there's, I don't know, posts. I think this was before memes even came out. It was like, why society is unhealthy. And specifically, it was focusing on the American society, because it costs $1.25 to get a cheeseburger, but if you want the salad, it's $7.99. And I'd be like, well, I want quick and cheap and easy, not
and I may not be able
it
to, like a privilege, like based on privilege, we may not be able to afford the $7.99. Like, so there's another layer of that as well, like where our needs are being compromised by the system because we literally we don't get access to the quality nutritious food that we want until we hit a certain like pay grade, like, which is ridiculous. So it's like we've kind of hopped a little off topic, but it's an important point to make because so often we don't realize that how we've been conditioned around what our worth is around our needs and whether spending more time and money on the things that on quality rather than quantity, because we live in a capitalist society. So quantity tends to be like, oh, more, and it's like, maybe not. I'm like, when it comes to the whole time aspect and like, how is it that like I don't have time to do this? Well, if you've got time, so for example, I know that a lot of people who say they don't have time, they probably check social media quite frequently. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with checking social media. There's absolutely no judgment about it. Checking social media is one of the ways that you're meeting your needs. And is there something else that you could do within that period of time that you're checking social media that would meet your needs better? Those are the kind of decisions that we're talking about, because so often we don't understand what's the difference between a red spectrum way of meeting our need and a green spectrum way of meeting our need. What are the things that are going to actually drain us? We're doing loads of the same stuff, but it's actually draining us, versus the thing where we could do one or two things and it's going to fulfill us. And it's interesting. There was there's a quote that kind of always comes up around around this, which is that it's an old Zen quote about meditation, and it says that you should meditate for at least 20 minutes a day unless you don't have time. Then you should meditate for an hour. And basically what they're saying is if you don't have time, you're going to need the additional resources that meditating is going to give you to cope with the whatever it is that you've got going on that means you don't have time to meditate. And the same principle kind of applies to needs. The thing I will say is the difference here is that you don't necessarily it doesn't have to take 20 minutes or an hour to meet your needs. The needs practice that we teach, you can do it in 5 to 15 minutes a day. And it's just about understanding that at the times when we are feeling time poor, that those are the times when it's even more important for us to put some focus and attention on meeting our needs, and focus and attention on meeting the needs in that green spectrum way. That because if we don't have an hour, I remember when I first started to come up with the ways of meeting needs that would work for me personally, and I remember that that first page of my foundation function needs, and I was looking at all the ways that I would want to meet that need. And it was like sleep at least 8 hours a day, meditate for 20 minutes a day, drink 2 liters of water a day. And I was like, oh my goodness, this feels exhausting before I've even started. Like, it feels like there's this huge amount that I have to do in order to meet these needs. And that feels heavy, and it feels like a job, and it feels like something I've got to fit in time-wise. It's like, I mean, you just look at that, like 8 hours a day plus an hour, like 40 minutes for yoga plus 20 minutes for meditation. I'm like, that's 9 hours before my day's even started.
And if you don't hit one of those marks, if you sleep for 7 hours, it's like,
well, I haven't done a good enough job at it.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that mentally will start impacting.
That's going to impact other needs as well. And so this is the thing, is that what we want to do with this is understand that actual fact, there are different things, there are ways of meeting our needs which are very simple, quick and easy. And so where we feel like we don't have time, what we want to do is we want to learn those things that are going to make the difference for us. The things that I can do in 2 minutes, the things that I can do in 30 seconds that are actually going to really make the difference and create a huge impact in terms of the meeting of my needs. Because then what we've got is a small amount of time input, but we're getting a huge output in terms of internal resource, and that having the resource normally to be able to deal with the fact that we don't have time. And then it may be that there are other needs that are going to support us in terms of our time. So for example, maybe the reason we don't have time is because we're not setting good boundaries with others around our time. That's one of the ways that we might meet our personal power need in a green spectrum way, is that we're going to start to set constructive and supportive boundaries. Well, by doing that, we create more time available for ourselves, because no longer are other people encroaching on that time and taking our time without us really being mindful about whether this is a choice that we want to make. So what we want to do is we want to start learning some of the things that are going to make a difference for us. I mean, so for example, one of the things that can make a huge difference for me, that is a very quick and simple thing I can do for myself, is especially if I've got an emotional situation, I've got something big going on that's kind of affecting me emotionally, taking a couple of minutes to empathize with myself and to say to myself the same things I would want Serena or another one of my close friends to say, which is like, wow, like we're going through a lot right now. This is huge. And it's okay that we're feeling the way that we are. Like, and just acknowledging, I'm feeling this right now, I'm feeling that right now, and that's okay. Like, this is part and parcel of processing what's going on right now. That I could do that. And what did that take me? 10 seconds to say all those things?
I don't even think it took you 10 seconds.
And it's like, that's something that when there's a huge emotional charge going on, that's something I can do for myself to be like, oh, okay, this is one of the things that I can do that will help me. Maybe it takes me 10 seconds, but it takes the charge out of that emotional experience expression. It meets that need. So that need being compromised isn't going to be pulling up my resources for the rest of the day. Because if I didn't do that, when I used to not do this, what I would do is the entire day that would be whirring on, like I'd be going over it on my mind. I'd be churning on it. I wouldn't be processing it. I'd be getting annoyed about it, and it would be frustrating me, and I'd be getting upset about it. But I wouldn't actually be processing it. I would just be wallowing in it. And that's also an episode that we need to do in the not so distant future, the difference between processing needs and wallowing in them, because there's a processing emotions, and wallowing in them, because there's a big difference between the two. And what I would do is I would wallow in those, that situation, and it would drain me even more. And it would mean, because I was drained, I would feel more need for rest. I'd feel need for an earlier night. Therefore I would end up with less time. Instead, by taking that moment to be like, okay, this is how I'm feeling right now. And actually, I've got every right to feel that way. That's a completely valid response to what is going on. And yeah, that kind of sucks right now. And it's okay that I'm feeling the way that I do. And I'm going to support myself. And I'm also going to do this to me. Maybe this, other, like all of those sorts of things. I can do that in maybe 10 or 20 seconds. And by doing that, no longer am I being drained by that thing that's going on. And instead, what I can do is I can take that time, and it buys me time basically, because I actually get more resource. So I need to maybe sleep. I don't need to sleep as early to try and recover that resource. And that actually ends up giving me more active time to be doing the things that I want to be doing in my day. I know that this is something that you've experienced a lot of as well, in terms of like this feeling like you were, I mean, when you first, like when we first started talking about needs, you were in overwhelm. Like you had so much going on in your life. And I remember the thought of like there was an element of, and there was actually a resistance, I think, to you going through the program, because it's like, I don't have time for anything else right now.
Yep. I thought of putting one more thing on my plate. Like I can't. She's like, well, it might actually help you. And I'm like, there is no way. I just can't. Do you want me to sit and breathe for a minute? Like I don't have a minute. And it's when you kind of take a step back, it's like, I do have a minute. I have a lot of couple of minutes. And she's like, that's all you need. Like,
and the reality is that the issue is that you didn't know what to do with those couple of minutes. So you were filling them with stuff rather than
bullshit.
I
mean, that's really what it was.
Yeah.
I was filling it with social media and things that weren't actually doing anything to fulfill me. They were just taking up the time.
Sometimes they were actually compromising your needs even further.
A lot of the times, uncovering what I was doing to fill that time. A lot of the time it was impacting other needs. It was impacting all of my needs. It was keeping me up later. It was making my head spin a little bit more. And it started small with me, and it started with like finding those places. Okay, where do I have 2 minutes? Okay, well, I'm going to the bathroom. Like, actually, I'm going to let my eyes rest right now too. So, okay. Like,
and that's a great example actually, where you're not having to find empty time when you're doing nothing. It's where you've got time to do, where you could add something to the thing that you're already doing, because it doesn't require much from you. I mean, it doesn't require much from you to go to the bathroom, generally speaking, as for most people. Sometimes it does, but like for
me personally,
it was like, okay,
my bathroom habits.
Unfortunately, we have a very close friendship. But yeah, I mean, that was a space and time where it's like, oh, okay, I can just rest for a second.
You had mentioned in a previous episode, like when you and your friend get together to practice Spanish, you use that also as a time to stretch, because you have to sit and do this. Okay, well, I can lie on my back and, pull up my knee at the same time and do the different stretches. So it's, not putting more on your plate. You're just using your time a little bit more efficiently.
You're using your time to meet other needs as well as the ones that you're already meeting, and in ways that aren't going to compromise you. That's the thing, is it's like sometimes
it's not a trade-off.
It's not a trade-off. You're not pushing your capacity. It's like, oh, hold on, this is something else I could do in this space, and this would really support me right now. And those are the things that you want to be looking for. It's like, first things first is that a lot of the time people are like, oh, well, I don't have this. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. I'm like, can you find 2 minutes? Most people can find 2 minutes a day. Set an alarm 2 minutes earlier, go to bed 2 minutes later. Literally 2 minutes is where we start. And take those 2 minutes and do something for yourself in those 2 minutes that's going to feel supportive, that's going to feel nourishing for you. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is. Take those 2 minutes. But then recognize that the other things that you're doing throughout the day, like where do you have time where you're doing something to fill time because you don't know how else to do it. And sometimes it's the habit, because it's like, I'm so exhausted, I don't have the capacity to think about what else I need at this point in time. I'm going to open up Facebook, or I'm going to go onto my email, or I'm going to like tweet something or what have you. It's like, I don't have time, so I go to the habit. And the habit is not necessarily the thing that is going to support the needs best. It's about being intentional. I mean, like, okay, now I've got this thing, I've got this space of time. What can I do that would actually feel supportive? Or in the moment where I'm like, I'm going to, like, my thumb is hovering over the Facebook icon, it's like pausing and being like, actually, is there something else I would like to do that's going to support me better in this moment in time? And when you start to do that, you start to bring that little bit more resource in. And this is the thing with this. We don't want to be, it's a lot of people, I think, expect they come in and it'd be like an immediate, like overnight, oh, that's it. Like it's fixed. Mm-hmm. Everything changes completely overnight. Whereas actually with the needs work, we do it small, simple, slow, quick and easy, and something that you can build. And this is the reason, like, Serena isn't the only one. We've had so many people who are like, I don't have time to do this program right now. And for some people, that's a legitimate, like, with all the things I have right now, that's not where I'm at right now. A lot of people are just, I don't have time for this, but I'm desperate and I need help with where I'm at right now because I'm exhausted and I'm running on empty and I'm burning out. And it's like, in that situation, often the things that we teach in the needs program, they are a slow build. And it's like, we start with where we're at. We start with what we've got capacity for. We've already spoken about that on a previous episode. And we go simple, quick and easy, and small. We go bite-sized baby steps. And you take a little baby step forward. Okay, we take another baby step forward. Sometimes we just stay there. We've done our baby steps for the last couple of days. We're just going to stay there. Being there is still moving forward in terms of getting your needs met, because you're allowing yourself to stop and catch up and figure out where you're at in terms of meeting needs. Like, okay, I got this now. Now I want to take another baby step. And so often the thought that we don't have time is more that we don't know what to do with the time that we have. And especially where these are small chunks, as Serena said, 2 minutes here, 2 minutes there, 2 minutes there. And the reality is that most people are like, well, what can I meaningfully do in 2 minutes?
A lot. You can meaningfully do a lot. One of the areas that, one of my first tweaks that I can recall, besides the bathroom thing, was realizing that my body, like, I wasn't dancing at that point, and I wasn't getting, doing my preventative wellness stuff. So my body always felt a little bit like just
stiff and tight.
Yeah. And so I'd be at work, and all of a sudden I'd be like, okay, like, I'm just going to do this for a couple of minutes, and I'd type away. And then sometimes
she's moving her head side to side and stretching her neck.
Like, stretching my neck. And that's what it started with. Because I was like, I'm going to stretch. I'm going to stretch every aspect of my body. That's too much.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, okay, I'm just going to start.
It doesn't feel doable, so you're not going to try.
Right. I'm just not going to do it at all, or I'm going to do it and not be able to do all of it and have this thing. I'm like, no, I'm just going to do this. And then it got to a point where, like, I'd be stretching my neck throughout the day, just as like a little thing. And those couple of moments made my neck that much looser, made me that much more mobile, made my, like, it felt more fluid within me. And then I realized that kind of stretching, the neck stretching, then turned into eventually I'd start kind of like, you know, I'd stretch my arms a little bit and my neck. And then I would build upon that simple little thing that started with me simply just moving. I wasn't even doing like intense stretching. It was like, okay, just side to side. Like I have the capacity.
I'm not setting aside and doing a stretching session. I'm just moving my neck while I'm sat at my desk. That's it. And that's the thing, is that there are so many things that you can do that are so simple, quick and easy, that fit into those small moments of time that you do have, the tiny pockets of time that you do have. And that's what is going to make the difference, is like capturing those pockets and making those count in terms of doing the things that are really going to feel supportive for you in those moments, in order that you can slowly start to build your resources. And maybe the more you build your resources, like the more you may set boundaries, the different decisions you may make in terms of your time that may create even more time for you to then do more things. And even if that doesn't happen, just doing it for those 2 minutes, you're going to feel so much better and so much more nourished and more resourced than you would without those 2 minutes.
And you create these little habits that are green spectrum habits. And another area that I can attest to for me was hydration. I've talked about it before, chronically dehydrated growing up and through adulthood. And Claire was a vision of hydration to me, like really.
And I never used to be either.
Like,
so
she always has a bottle of something, like, you know, she had water bottles, her cup, and was always
coconut water with me. It used to be like my
go-to.
I was going to say sidekick, but like,
I'm your sidekick.
Yeah, you're my sidekick. That's fair. That's reasonable. But yeah, I would have something with me almost all the time,
and I'd have nothing. I'd have nothing even in my vicinity. Like, back up. That's a lie. I'd have a coffee. And that's all I'd have around me. And I'd say, like, no, I don't like water. It's hard for me to stay hydrated. I've tried. I've had lights on my drinks. I've had, like, rings on my bottles. I've had lines and jugs and like, alarms. None of it really worked for me. And I was like, well, you need to drink 8 hours, yeah. You need to drink 8 ounces or...
That's a lot of water.
Yeah, like 8 ounces of sitting and however many ounces a day and all these cups and all these things. And just even thinking about it, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to do any of that.
Overwhelmed.
She's like, how about just starting with a sip?
Right.
I'm like, a sip? Like a single sip? All right. So begrudgingly would be like, look, I'm taking a sip of water. And she's like, good. And then eventually it became like, all right, I just have a can of seltzer next to me all the time because occasionally I might want a sip. And if it's there, I'm going to grab it and take a sip. And then all of a sudden I realized, without even really trying to create this habit, as you see now, like if it's there, I constantly go for it. And I'm constantly taking sips and I'm actually hydrated. And I'm building the resource of that part of my foundation function. And it's I'm not setting aside, like, I have to drink this jug and I have to do this before noon. And for some people that works and that's great.
If it works, fab.
But I tried to force it for many years and it didn't work. So I was actually very resistant because I was like, no, it's been 30 however many years, like, and now you're going to tell me to take sips and that's what's going to work? Well, shit.
Well, and that's the thing is,
if I say, well, sip.
Well, sip, right. Well, the funny thing is that if I'd said to you at the beginning, right, you need to drink at least 2 liters of water a day or whatever, like 16 ounces or 32 ounces a day or whatever it was, you'd have been like, I don't have time to do that. That would have been one of the things, like, I don't have time to do that. Sorry, like, I don't have time to do that. You probably end up drinking more than that because you end up sipping throughout your day.
Yeah, when I finally told Claire, I buy lots of seltzer. And I told her, I was like, I go through about at least a case a week. That's unheard of for me. Like, where I was, I would go through like a case a month, maybe. I mean, there's 8 to 12 in a case. Like, that's not a lot of that. I mean, a case is probably what you're supposed to drink serving wise, or like half a case a day when you think about how many ounces. But like,
I don't know.
I'm actually doing something that's closer to that than being dehydrated.
Yeah. And it all started with these small, doable steps. And so this is the thing is, if you don't feel like you've got time, look at what you can do. Look at what the small, doable steps are with the time that you do have available that are moving more in that green spectrum direction of doing the things that are actually going to nourish the needs that aren't going to drain you. And obviously we go into that in more detail in the program, but just learning like some of the examples that we're giving you right now, like literally drink water is one of those things. Not an amount of water, like drink a sip of water. That's one of the things. It's like, okay, if you just did a sip of water every time you had a 30-second break in the day, you're going to be more hydrated by the end of the day than you would have been if you hadn't been doing that.
If you take just a sip of water when you're not taking a sip of water, you're already doing...
It's progress.
It's progress.
Yeah.
It's progress.
Progress.
Wow.
No.
Every so often I'm like,
my influence is spreading, but the thing is that her influence is spreading too. So like, it's so funny. I used to go and visit. I used to date somebody who lived in Zurich, and while I was there, I ended up spending a lot of time with a woman who was French, and I spoke pretty good French, and she spoke pretty good English, but both of us were really out of habit. And so what we ended up doing is I'd go out there for 3 weeks. In the beginning of the vacation, I'd speak English and she'd speak French, and then we'd transition gradually over the time that we spent together. And by the end, I'd be speaking French, she'd be speaking English. I've got a feeling that's going to happen with us. Like all of a sudden, I'm going to end up with the Americanisms, and you're going to end up like with the niggles. Yeah, don't do that. Although the progress was pretty good, I have to say. The progress was good.
Yeah,
like,
that was meant to be.
That was natural.
The other one was meant to be kind of a shit accent, and
and it was a very good shit accent. Like mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add? It sounded like there was more to come there, but no.
No.
I think that's it for today, and we won't want to take any more of your time right now. My invitation to you is to take these understandings of these little nuggets, of finding these little nuggets of time and doing the things, different things within those spaces of time that are going to nourish you that little bit more, that are going to get you moving in that direction of being more nourished, more fulfilled, and more resourced. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Remember to stay safe, and between now and next time, to continue to meet your own needs. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye, friends.
That's it for today.
If you like what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and give us a written review,
as it will help more people find us. And remember, you don't need to find more time. You just need to find the ways of meeting your needs that work better with the time you already have.
Well, shit. It really is that simple.